Right, welcome everyone. It is 1:30. Let's begin with the stream. Just want to thank you for those of you who are patient with me. I know that I messed up last time with the stream. I forgot to go live. Hopefully this time this is on. I'm checking right now. Yeah, and it says that we are live. So I really hope that those of you who are choosing to be here on this Friday afternoon are here and ready to read with me. Chapter 7 is a doozy. So I hope that we're able to get through it. It's a little bit longer than the other ones. Um, I'll have the presentation up. Our team created the presentation, but if we need to add anything to it or whatever for next week, this will be fine. If you're just watching the video, don't worry about it. But here is chapter 7 of Things Fall Apart. I'll do my best to pronounce all the names and stuff. I don't know if that's this chapter or next chapter, but I'll do my best. And you guys have the recording of me anyway, so you'll have that. Anyways, if anyone's in the chat and wants to tell me if this is an okay level or if they want me to slow down or anything or be more quiet, just let me know. All right, chapter 7 of Things Fall Apart. For 3 years, Ikemefuna lived in Okonkwo's household, and the elders of Omofia seemed to have forgotten about him. He grew rapidly, like a yam tendril in the rainy season, and was full of the sap of life. He had become wholly absorbed into his new family. He was like an elder brother to Nwoye, and from the very first, seemed to have kindled a new fire in the younger boy. He made him feel grown up, and they no longer spent the evenings in his mother's hut while she cooked, but now sat with Okonkwo in his obi, or watched him as he tapped his palm tree for the evening wine. Nothing pleased Nwoye now more than to be sent for by his mother or another of his father's wives to do one of those difficult and masculine tasks in the home, like splitting wood or pounding food. On receiving such a message through a younger brother or sister, Nwoye would feign annoyance and grumble aloud about women and their troubles. Oh, we can see a little bit of Okonkwo's influence here, can't we? That's what he wanted him to be, a young man, and I think it was Ikemefuna who kind of helped that development. Oh yeah, Okonkwo was inwardly pleased at his son's development, and he knew it was due to Ikemefuna. He wanted Nwoye to grow into a tough, young man capable of ruling his father's household when he was dead and gone to join the Answered. So here's the reason why, they value kids in the Igbo culture, because, they want their kids to honor their spirit when they're gone. He wanted him to be a prosperous man, having enough in his barn to feed the ancestors with regular sacrifices, and so he was always happy when he heard him grumbling about women. That showed that in time he would be able to control his women folk. No matter how prosperous a man was, if he was unable to rule his women and his children, and especially his women, he was not really a man. He was like the man in the song who had 10 and 1 wives and not enough soup for his fufu. This one took a bit for me to understand, but remember, in this culture, it's the women who cook the food for the man. I don't think the man does any cooking. And it looks like this man has 11 wives, but he doesn't have enough. Even though he has 11 wives, they don't cook for him. So it's implying like you don't have control over your family. And Okonkwo, he values that control. So Okonkwo encouraged the boys to sit with him in his obi, and he told them stories of the land, masculine stories of violence and bloodshed. There it is. Masculinity means violence and bloodshed. Nwoye knew that it was right to be masculine and to be violent, but somehow he still preferred the stories that his mother used to tell, and which she no doubt still told to her younger children. So Nwoye knew the gender role in this culture is to be masculine, to be violent, and to be, into the whole killing thing. But he actually prefers the stories that his mom tells, the feminine stories, I suppose, which she no doubt still told her younger children, stories of the tortoise and his wily ways, of the bird Eneke Tioba, who challenged the whole world to a wrestling contest and was finally thrown by the cat. He remembered the story she often told of a quarrel between earth and sky long ago, and how sky withheld rain for 7 years until crops withered and the dead could not be buried because the hose broke on the stony earth. At last Vulture was sent to plead with sky, and to soften his heart with a song of the suffering of the songs of men. Whether Nwoye's mother sang this song, he felt carried away to the distant scene in the sky where Vulture, Earth's emissary, sang for mercy. At last, Sky was moved to pity, and he gave to Vulture rain wrapped in leaves of cocoyam. But as he flew home, his long talon pierced the leaves, and the rain fell as it had never fallen before. And so heavily did it rain on Vulture that he did not return to deliver. Ooh, excuse me. I don't have COVID, I swear. And so heavily did it rain on Vulture that he did not return to deliver his message, but flew to a distant land from where he had espied a fire. And when he got there, he found that it was man making a sacrifice. He warmed himself in the fire and ate the entrails. So that's these are the kinds of stories that Nwoye seems to be into. When his mother like talks about like mythology and like, like animals and the stories of mercy, those seem to be children or feminine stories, not the stories of war and violence. He prefers that on the inside, while on the outside he shows Okonkwo that he's ready to be a man and he loves the war stories. I think we talked about, hiding our emotions and what we really think, this doesn't play out well in the future, I don't think. That was the kind of story Nwoye loved, but he now knew that they were for foolish women and children, and he knew that his father wanted him to be a man, and so he feigned to fake. He faked that he no longer cared for women's stories, and when he did this, he saw that his father was pleased and no longer rebuked him or beat him. Have you ever faked it for someone's approval? Maybe, you really like someone, and in order to impress them, you pretended to be more or less than what you actually are. I think we've all done that before. So Nwoye and Ikemefuna would listen to Okonkwo's stories about tribal wars or how, years ago, he had stalked his victim, overpowered him, and obtained his first human head. And as he told them of the past, they sat in darkness of the dim glow of logs, waiting for the women to finish their cooking. When they finished, each brought her bowl of fufu and bowl of soup to her husband. An oil lamp was lit, and Okonkwo tasted from each bowl, and then passed 2 shares to Nwoye and Ikemefuna. So Okonkwo is like, he is now sharing the meals that the women prepare for the men, and he's sharing that with the new men of the family. That would be Ikemefuna and Nwoye. All right. So let's take a look so far. So Ikemefuna stays for his family with 3 years. That's a low recap here. Nwoye grows fond of Ikemefuna. He teaches Nwoye how to be more manly. And Okonkwo is also fond of him. Okonkwo even calls Okonkwo father. Okay. We have not hit that yet, but this is coming up. In this way, the moons and the seasons passed, and then the locusts came. It had not happened for many a long year. The elders said locusts came once in a generation, reappeared every year for 7 years, and then disappeared for another lifetime. They went back to their caves in a distant land where they were guarded by a race of stunted men. And then after another lifetime, these men opened the caves again, and the locusts came to Omofia. They came in the cold Harmattan season after the harvest had been gathered, and ate up all the wild grass in the fields. Oh, that's good. They came after the harvest. We want to make sure that they don't eat up the yams as we're harvesting them, right? Okonkwo and the 2 boys were working on the red outer walls of the compound. This was one of the lighter tasks of the after-harvest season. A new cover of thick palm branches and palm leaves was set on the walls to protect them from the next rainy season. Okonkwo worked on the outside of the wall, and the boys worked from within. There were little holes from one side to the other in the upper levels of the wall, and through these, Okonkwo passed the rope, or tai-tai, to the boys, and they passed it round the wooden stays, and then back to him. And in this way, the cover was strengthened on the wall. So they're doing a little bit of home improvement, getting ready for the next season of planting. They're just, fortifying their wall against the rain. The women had gone to the bush to collect firewood, and the little children to visit their playmates in the neighboring compounds. The Harmattan was still in the air and seemed to distill a hazy feeling of sleep on the world. Okonkwo and the boys worked in complete silence, which was only broken when a new palm frond was lifted onto the wall, or when a busy hen moved dry leaves about in her ceaseless search for food. So this is one of those really like lazy days. Think like a lazy Sunday afternoon. You have a chore to do and you're doing it and it feels like time moves by really slowly. That's what Okonkwo, Ikemefuna, and Woye are doing. They're working on like Sunday afternoon chores. And then, quite suddenly, a shadow fell on the world, and the sun seemed hidden behind a thick cloud. Okonkwo looked up from his work and wondered if it was going to rain at such an unlikely time of the year. But almost immediately, a shout of joy broke out in all directions, and Umofia, which had dozed in the noonday haze, broke into life and activity. "Locusts are descending," was joyfully chanted everywhere, and men, women, and children left their work or their play and ran into the open to see the unfamiliar sight. The locusts had not come for many, many years, and only the old people had seen them before. At first, so before we get into this, locusts are insects. They're like large grasshoppers that can fly, I guess. Actually, I do have a couple of videos I'd like to show you while we're at it. Let's see if this works. Okay, so we have... Actually, no, it's in the... There we go. It's right here. So we're going to pop this out. Does that work? Well, besides the ad, hold on. Let's see if this works. No, it doesn't work. That's not good. Hold on. There we go. So this is a example of locusts. So around the world, so locusts are migratory insects, and I guess in like in nature they migrate every few years, and in Africa they kind of just coat the land. It looks like this guy is trying to agitate them to get them out somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, this is what the locust swarm looks like. Just a bunch of like little grasshoppers. They don't harm anyone, but they do eat up everything. They eat up like all of the plants, all of the vegetation. So it's good that this comes after the harvest, because then they'll eat up all the leftover stuff. It's kind of like, you know, the cleanup crew that comes after the harvest, but it only happens like once every 7 years. This reminds me of something. I did want to show you this. If you're not catching this right now, here is another video. Come on. Play me the video.
On the Las Vegas Strip, right across from the Mirage, is this.
In Sin City, it's the insect invasion, putting on
Does
a
anyone
show
remember this?
no one can escape.
They popped up out of nowhere.
A 24/7 onslaught of grasshoppers that really sticks with you.
What the heck, dude? You're all covered in locusts. I know. You're just covered in them, dude.
For many, the first impression
These are
felt
just grasshoppers.
downright
They're not
biblical. A migrating horde of
kind of
bugs
like
so
locusts,
big,
but not really.
you could even see them from space. Experts say a soggy winter plus a mild spring made conditions perfect for the pallid-winged
Do
grasshopper.
you guys remember this?
A migratory species that should be gone in a few weeks. But till then...
One thing they're known to do is mate, and that's why there's so many of them around here.
To make matters worse, they're attracted to bright, especially white lights, finding their match made in heaven on the Vegas Strip.
I've seen people running around away from the grasshoppers.
Scientists say the invasions only happened a few times over the past 30 years, and the grasshoppers pose more of a nuisance than a threat. Either way, the critter takeover has those in Sin City hoping for once.
This is kind of weird.
What happens in Vegas
That's gross.
doesn't stay
That's
here.
gross.
Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
So that's a little bit of, you know, what it's like. Do you guys remember that summer when all the grasshoppers showed up? That's kind of what's going on in the story. They are but the way that they're reacting in the story is completely different from how we reacted. Like when we reacted, it's like, oh, the locusts or the grasshoppers are here, right? And then we try to exterminate them or get rid of them or can't wait for them to pass. But here, everyone's happy. At first, a fairly small swarm came. They were the harbingers sent to survey the land, and then appeared on the horizon a slowly moving mass like a boundless sheet of black cloud drifting towards Umofia. Soon it covered half the sky, and the solid mass was now broken by tiny eyes of light, like shining stardust. It was a tremendous sight, full of power and beauty. Everyone was now about, talking excitedly and praying that the locusts should camp in Umofia for the night. For although locusts had not visited Umofia for many years, everybody knew by instinct that they were very good to eat. And at last the locusts did descend. They settled on every tree and on every blade of grass. They settled on the roofs and covered the bare ground. Mighty tree branches broke away under them. The trees have been breaking because of the weight of insects. That's a lot of insects, because I don't know, last I checked, insects weren't very big. And the whole country became the brown earth color of the vast, hungry swarm. Many people went out with baskets trying to catch them, but the elders counseled patience till nightfall. They were right. The locusts settled in the bushes for the night, and their wings became wet with dew. Then all Umofia turned out in spite of the cold Harmattan, and everyone filled his bags and pots with locusts. The next morning they were roasted in clay pots and then spread in the sun until they became dry and brittle. And for many days this rare food was eaten with solid palm oil. This was their potato chip. They fried these little guys and coated them in palm oil. So it's like a nice little snack. Okonkwo sat in his obi, crunching happily with Ikemefuna and Nwoye, and drinking palm wine copiously, when Ogbuefi Ezeudu came in. Ezeudu was the oldest man in this quarter of Umofia. So look, it is another cultural thing. They see locusts as a great blessing of food. We see locusts as a nuisance and things to be disgusted with. Bam, check that out. All right, so we've got this comic strip here. Can't really see what's going on, but that's okay. We will explain. Okonkwo sat in his obi, crunching happily with Ikemefuna and Nwoye, and drinking palm wine copiously when Ogbuefi Ezeudu came in. Ezeudu was the oldest man in this quarter of Umofia. He had been a great and fearless warrior in his time, and was now accorded great respect in all the clan. He refused to join in the meal, and asked Okonkwo to have a word with him outside, and so they walked out together, the old man supporting himself with his stick. When they were out of earshot, he said to Okonkwo, "That boy calls you father. Do not bear a hand in his death." Okonkwo was surprised, and was about to say something when the old man continued, "Yes, Umofia has decided to kill him. The Oracle of the Hills and the Caves has pronounced it. They will take him outside Umofia as is the custom and kill him there. But I want you to have nothing to do with it. He calls you his father." You remember back in chapter 1, the end of chapter 1 was like Ikemefuna, the ill-fated boy. This is that ill fate. Remember, Ikemefuna was surrendered by the village of Mbino to avoid war. And the reason why they were going to have a war was because one of their men killed a woman of Umofia. So one part of the bargain was to have a woman replace that dead woman. So a young virgin girl was given to the man who lost his wife, so that she could replace her. But that still didn't settle the fact that someone was murdered. So basically, it's like, okay, Mbino, you murdered one of our people. In order for us to be even, we have to be able to murder one of yours. And it looks like that's the reasoning that they have with this. Ikemefuna has been living with Okonkwo for 3 years. And now they've decided to exact revenge. This is messed up. The next day, the group of elder from all the 9 villages of Umofia came to Okonkwo's house early in the morning, and before they began to speak in low tones, Nwoye and Ikemefuna were sent out. They did not stay very long, but when they went away, Okonkwo sat still for a very long time, supporting his chin in his palms. Later in the day, he called Ikemefuna and told him that he was to be taken home the next day. Nwoye overheard it and burst into tears. whereupon his father beat him heavily. Two things there. One, Okonkwo, I think, is pretty upset about this because he beat Nwoye heavily. And two, Nwoye showed emotion, not very manly. Another reason for Okonkwo to beat him. So, dang. As for Ikemefuna, he was at a loss. His own home had gradually become very faint and distant. He still missed his mother and sister and would be very glad to see them, but somehow he knew he was not going to see them. He remembered once when men had talked in low tones with his father, and it seemed now as if it was happening all over again. Remember the last time men talked in low tones with his father? He was taken away, never to return to his village, and now they're talking in low tones again. Later, Nwoye went to his mother's hut and told her that Ikemefuna was going home. She immediately dropped her pestle with which she was grinding pepper, folded her arms across her breast, and sighed. Poor child. That next day, the men returned with a pot of wine. They were all fully dressed as if they were going to a big clan meeting or to pay a visit to a neighboring village. They passed their cloths under the right armpit and hung their goatskin bags and sheathed machetes over the left shoulders. Okonkwo got ready quickly, and the party set out with Ikemefuna carrying the pot of wine. A deathly silence descended on Okonkwo's compound. A deathly silence. Even the very little children seemed to know. Throughout that day, Nwoye sat in his mother's hut, and tears stood in his eyes. It seems like everyone knows what's going to happen, huh? Also, Okonkwo is not listening to his friend. He's getting ready to go. I don't think this is going to turn out well for Okonkwo. At the beginning of their journey, the men of Umuofia talked and laughed about the locusts, about their women, and about some effeminate men who had refused to come with them. See, even they're making fun of people who, didn't show up because they're not manly enough to handle it. But as they drew near to the outskirts of Umuofia, silence fell upon them too. The sun rose slowly to the center of the sky, and the dry, sandy footway began to throw up the heat that lay buried in it. Some birds chirped in the forest around. The men trod dry leaves on the sand. All else was silent. Then from the distance came the faint beating of the ekwe. It rose and faded with the wind, a peaceful dance from a distant clan. It is an Ozo dance, the men said among themselves. But no one was sure where it was coming from. Some said Ezemili, others Abame or Aninta. They argued for a short while and fell into silence again, and the elusive dance rose and fell with the wind. Somewhere, a man was taking one of the titles of his clan, with music and dancing and a great feast. That's a pretty big contrast to what's about to happen here. The footway had now become a narrow line in the heart of the forest. The short trees and sparse undergrowth which surrounded the men's village began to give way to giant trees and climbers which perhaps had stood from the beginning of things, untouched by the axe and the brush fire. The sun, breaking through their leaves and branches, threw a pattern of light and shade on the sandy footway. Bleh. Bleh. Ikemefuna heard a whisper close behind him and turned round sharply. The man who had whispered now called out aloud, urging the others to hurry up. We still have a long way to go, he said. Then he and another man went before Ikemefuna and set a faster pace. Thus the men of Umuofia pursued their way, armed with sheathed machetes, and Ikemefuna carrying a pot of palm wine on his head. Oh, they gave him a job, so he can feel safe knowing that he's doing something. He walked in their midst. Although he had felt uneasy at first, he was not afraid now. Okonkwo walked behind him. He could hardly imagine that Okonkwo was not his real father. He had never been fond of his real father, and at the end of 3 years, he had become very distant indeed. But his mother and his 3-year-old sister, of course, she would not be 3 now, but 6. Okay, wait, hold up. He wasn't fond of his own father, but he liked Okonkwo. And remember, Okonkwo is not that loving of a father, at least not in the way that we would think, right? But the way that he shows love, through his strictness, through his ability to feed and provide for his family, Ikemefuna likes that. He trusts Okonkwo, and Nwoye wants nothing but to please Okonkwo. So maybe we're letting our cultural perspectives of what a good father, cloud our opinions. We have to look at it from the Igbo tribe's perspective. I think maybe they would view Okonkwo as like a really, really good dad. So keep that in mind. Our cultural perspectives are affecting our opinion of this character. Because, like it or not, Okonkwo is doing a pretty good job at taking care of his family. Although he's really, really strict. He reminds me of like at least in the Asian culture, Asian stereotype, he reminds me of a strict Asian dad. And he does sound a lot like my father, except my father never beat me. But, that might just be a sign of love. Anyways, his mother and 3-year-old sister, of course, she would not be 3 now, but 6. Would he recognize her now? She must have grown quite big. How his mother would weep for joy and thank Okonkwo for having looked after him so well and for bringing him back. She would want to hear everything that had happened to him in all these years. Could he remember them all? He would tell her about Nwoye and his mother and all about the locusts. Then quite suddenly a thought came upon him. His mother might be dead. He tried in vain to force a thought out of his mind. Then he tried to settle the matter the way he used to settle such matters when he was a little boy. He still remembered the song. Eze, Elina, Alina, Sala. Eze, Ilikwa, Aya, Ikwaba, Aqua, Aholi, Ebe. Danda Nechi, Eze, Ebe, Uzuzu, Nete Egu, Sala. So, that was my interpretation of that song. But what he's basically doing there is that he's singing a song in his head. He sang it in his mind and walked to its beat. If the song ended on his right foot, his mother was alive. If it ended on his left, she was dead. This is like, flipping a coin, or a fun way to see if someone likes you. He likes me not. He likes me not. He likes me not. That's, plucking the petals off of a flower. I don't think anyone's done that. Or that, like, the fortune cookie. You guys remember the fortune cookie from middle school, right? Or is that millennial generation thing? I don't know. But he's trying to pass the time and not think about it. He feels safer because Okonkwo is behind him. But he's playing the game, mind games. If it ended on his left, she was dead. No, not dead, but ill. It ended on the right. She was alive and well. He sang the song again, and it ended on the left. But the second time did not count. The first voice gets to Chukwu, or God's house. That was a favorite saying of children. Ikemefuna felt like a child once more. It must be the thought of going home to his mother. See, he's trying to distract himself from all of this. And remember, he's like 18 years old right now. One of the men behind him cleared his throat. Ikemefuna looked back, and the man growled at him to go on and not stand looking back. The way he said it sent cold fear down Ikemefuna's back. His hands trembled vaguely on the black pot he carried. Why had Okonkwo withdrawn to the rear? Ikemefuna felt his legs melting under him, and he was afraid to look back. Okonkwo was not behind him anymore. Okonkwo was all the way in the back of the line. Now he's just surrounded by the other elders of Amofia. As the man who had cleared his throat drew up and raised his machete, Okonkwo looked away. He heard the blow. The pot fell and broke in the sand. He heard Ikemefuna cry, "My father, they have killed me!" as he ran towards him. Dazed with fear, Okonkwo drew his machete and cut him down. He was afraid of being thought weak. My friends, Okonkwo killed his son, his adopted son. He killed him, not because of this belief of justice that, that the oracle is passing down, but because he was afraid of being thought of as weak in front of the other men. As soon as his father walked in that night, Nwoye knew that Ikemefuna had been killed, and something seemed to give way inside him, like the snapping of a tightened bow. He did not cry. He just hung limp. He had had the same kind of feeling not long ago during the last harvest season. Every child loved the harvest season. Those who were big enough to carry even a few yams in a tiny basket went with grown-ups to the farm, and if they could not help in digging up the yams, they could gather firewood together for roasting the ones that would be eaten there on the farm. This roasted yam soaked in red palm oil and eaten in the open farm was sweeter than any meal at home. It was after such a day at the farm during the last harvest that Nwoye had felt for the first time a snapping inside him like the one he now felt. They were returning home with baskets of yams from a distant farm across the stream when they heard the voice of an infant crying in the thick forest. A sudden hush had fallen on the women who had been talking, and they had quickened their steps. Nwoye had heard that twins were put in earthenware pots and thrown away in the forest, but he had never yet come across them. A vague chill had descended on him, and his head had seemed to swell, like a solitary walker at night who passes an evil spirit on the way. Then something had given way inside him. It descended on him again, this feeling, when his father walked in that night after killing Ikemefuna. Whoa, that's chapter 7, kids. That is what happens. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack here. Remember, for the last few chapters, we've been watching Okonkwo as he's investing his time and effort in raising these kids. But we also know that Okonkwo has some deep, deep flaws. One of them is that he is afraid. Let's see. Maybe I might have to reorganize some of these slides. So remember, Okonkwo is afraid of being seen as weak. He doesn't want to be like his father Unoka. So he goes despite the advice of his friend. And when the time comes, he kills his adopted son Ikemefuna that he has grown fond of. But let's take a look at let's take a look at Nwoye. So Nwoye, in this last paragraph, at the beginning of the chapter, we see that he's starting to become more manly. He's starting to be more like what Okonkwo's definition of manliness is. You know, he's grumbling at women and children's stories, and he's doing manly household tasks like chopping firewood. But at the end, especially when he hears that Ikemefuna is going to go away, he starts crying. And he spends the day in his mother's hut instead of his father's obi. That's kind of like, you know, when you're scared at night and you go to your family's bedroom, like when you're a little kid, when you go to your family's, your parents' bedroom or whatever, and you hide in there instead of going to your own room. It's like Ikemefuna had progress at the beginning of the chapter, and then he went back. And we learned some things about Ikemefuna. Nwoye. We learned some things about Nwoye. He had felt something like this before. I guess, so this is important to understand. In the Igbo culture, where is it? Nwoye had heard that twins were put in earthenware pots and thrown away in the forest, but he had never yet come across them. So I think in the Igbo culture, having twins is a curse. You know, like if someone says like, congratulations, we're having twins, hooray, we're having twins, not one but two, yay, bigger family. But in the Igbo culture, even though we've established that they value kids, they don't value twins. For whatever reason, they don't think having twins is a good thing, like it's a curse. So what they do is they put them in pots and throw them away in the forest. Take a guess which forest, kids. The evil forest, right? So they throw away in the evil forest. And it turns out that when Nwoye is coming back from visiting another farm and bringing home baskets of yams, he heard the voice of an infant crying in the thick forest. So maybe this could have been either the actual twins, the babies in the forest, Or maybe he believed that it was the spirit of the twins from the forest. But the thing is, something he hurt inside. I don't know if you know what this word is, but it's called empathy. When you're able to feel someone else's emotions without having them yourself. Like, you know, I'm having a perfectly fine day, but the fact that you're having a terrible day, I feel for you. I get it. Like, I can feel that you're upset. I might not understand what's making you upset. I might not be able to like sympathize with your exact situation, but I know that you're upset and I feel it. Ikemefuna, Nwoye is incredibly sensitive. That's not a manly thing in Okonkwo's eyes, right? Okonkwo doesn't really have the capacity for feeling other people's feelings. He kind of just shuts it out because that's manly. But we learned that Nwoye is incredibly sensitive because he feels it not just when he passes the crying infant in the forest, but he can feel it when Okonkwo comes back after he killed Ikemefuna. Something snaps inside of him. Something like traumatizes him. That's how much he feels for this. So this is important. Remember, we're going to do a character analysis at the end of this book, and Nwoye is a very interesting character to analyze because remember, he's a kid who's very sensitive that's growing up under Okonkwo's household, and Okonkwo basically wants to beat the sensitivity and feminism out of his son. But here it's kind of getting reinforced because his best friend, his older brother, was just murdered by his father. This is a heavy chapter. And I think there's a lot to unpack. I'm not sure if anyone is watching here, but if anyone has any reactions or has any questions, I'd love to answer them or help guide me with this. I do want to take a look at our slides and see if there's any way I can make it any clearer so that you can picture it in class or if you're watching this again. But yeah, this is a rough story. It started off like, oh, everything's hunky-dory and fine, and then the news comes like, hey, we gotta take revenge. So let's see. Ubwefi Ezuedu. I hate these names. It's so hard. I've tried to pronounce it. It's Ubwefi Ezuedu comes to meet Okonkwo. I can't read it from here. This is a very low-res comic. I might have to replace it. But basically, I think it's, yeah, they say, like, he's got to go. They go out. Okonkwo basically cuts him down after he gets attacked by the elders and he runs away. I guess they didn't do a killing blow. But Okonkwo lands the killing blow because he's a man. And he doesn't want to be seen as weak. That's something, yo. Nwoye hears the news, he cries. Ikemefuna is at a loss for words. Ikemefuna leaves the next morning, but Okonkwo does not obey the advice of Ubwefi, and he accompanies the men who are escorting Ikemefuna. At first, Ikemefuna is scared, but later calms down because Okonkwo is with them. And then, outside Umuofia, one of the men strikes Ikemefuna in the back. Doesn't kill him. It does not kill him. If those men just did their job, because Okonkwo was going to hang back. He was going to hang back and let them do their thing. He was going to hang back. He just knew that he had to show face, right? He just needed to show up and be like, I'm not one of these effeminate men who doesn't want to turn up in the duty of the Oracle. I'm going to go. But he hangs back. He hangs back. He doesn't plan on taking part of it. But they didn't kill him immediately. And that allows Ikemefuna to turn around and run toward Okonkwo. Okonkwo has two choices. He can either look like a woman and protect him, and disobey the gods, give him mercy, or he can kill him and save face and show everyone that he's a man that lives up to his word and upholds the will of the gods. And he makes that decision because he was afraid of being seen as weak. So I told you at the beginning, Okonkwo's flawed. He's got some issues. But imagine killing your friend just to prove a point that you're not a weakling. Whoa, I had a thought. Isn't that like I don't know, when you get pressured to do bad things, in order to prove yourself to a group of people, in order to like show that you're tough, right? For some reason, I'm brought of like, you know, like gang culture, hazing culture. Like, hey, you're not part of this group unless you can show us you can do something extreme, something crazy, show your dedication to us. That's like Okonkwo is doing, but he's got it all in his head. He's like, I gotta prove that I'm a man, therefore I'm going to kill my son. That's some next level like ego right there. He's doing everything to save his ego. So remember, this is Okonkwo trying to prove that he's a man. So I don't know what you think about it. I want to know, like, how does this make you feel about Okonkwo? Does it change your opinion of him? Remember our discussion about, you know, leaders with flaws. You can see Okonkwo has a pretty big flaw. His need to protect his manliness, his pride in his manliness. Think of people who do that. Think of people who, like, will do anything to protect their image. What do you think of those people? Are you one of those people? This is a very heavy chapter, because I think we've grown fond of Ikemefuna. We've followed his character, and Okonkwo basically murders him. In chapter 8, we are going to find out how Okonkwo deals with this, because we do see some instances where Okonkwo doesn't want to deal with it. Like, he does show hesitation when, you know, the news is brought to him that Ikemefuna is going to be killed. He does hang back, even though he shows up for the party. He hangs back and doesn't want anything to do with it. It's just Ikemefuna forces his hand. So we're going to get a little bit of a look in how Okonkwo feels about all of this in the next chapter, chapter 8. So I'm going to end the stream in just a little bit with a reminder that I will be picking up with chapter 8 on Monday afternoon. I do hope that you tune in at 1:30 again. I really do love this part of the book because it challenges us to think about Okonkwo as a character. And there's a lot of cultural decisions, like cultural insights with this that I think we can apply to ourselves. Like I said, like how would you feel if you had a choice between saving face and doing essentially the right thing? What would you do? How important is your ego to you? How important is your pride to you? So I hope that if you are watching this right now, that this is something that you're thinking of. If you are watching this in a video, and maybe we've discussed it in class, this is another way for you to think about why this book is important to us today. Because there are some people in this world who will do anything to save their pride, to save their ego. And we can see that in Okonkwo. And we'll see if that leads to his downfall or if we can, like in Nwoye, empathize with him. All right, kids. There is one more bit of business that I have to do. I did have, at least for my kids, my students, I sent out an announcement. I send out an announcement every Wednesday. And every Wednesday, kind of detailing things that are going on at school or what you need to accomplish. And it has our What's a Wednesday assignment. But this last Wednesday, I did something different. And I included something just to see who was paying attention. I included a little, like, challenge, a raffle for those who do pay attention and read the announcements. I asked you if you could fill something out for me, and if you filled it out, you would be eligible to get a $5 gift card to Amazon. I'd be raffling it off, and let's see how many people actually did it. That's what I want to see. So if you're tuning in right now and you want to do it, nope, sorry, it's already closed. But let's see how many kids filled it out. 2. I've got 2 kids out of my entire 150 student roster who filled out this opportunity drawing thing and read my announcement. So I'm just going to say both of them are going to get a gift card. Congratulations to my 2 students. I'll give you a shout out in class. But thank you for paying attention and making me feel like all the hard work that we teachers put into our lessons and into trying to give you access to knowledge and information for validating us. I hope that the rest of you will look forward to the future live streams that we do and other things that we do. I'll try to toss in some other things. Didn't have anyone participating in the chat today, but that's okay. I'm hoping someday someone will watch this and be like, hey, this is a great thing for to help us learn this things fall apart while we're in virtual learning. And if you are catching this video later on during the week and you want to say something, leave a comment in the chat. I have to do that, huh? Subscribe if you want to get a notification to know if we're going live again so that you can tune in. We are going to do this regularly, and I really hope that you are getting something from this. But anyways, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your day, and I will see you on Monday for Chapter 8. And be prepared for discussion in class about Chapter 7 because there is a lot. There definitely is a lot to discuss. And I hope it doesn't bring your day down because I like Ikemefuna. Don't know about you. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Take care.